Music is one of the few artistic media which can not only transcend society, but cultural boundaries as a whole. Not many musicians have truly had a cultural impact as significant as that of Bob Dylan. Not only is he a linguist master, but his art provided significant improvements to our lives as a whole. In this video, I'll be going over Bob Dylan and his history and what he impacted in our society. On May 24th, 1941, in Duluth, Minnesota, Bob Dylan would be born as Bob Jewish. And as his last name implies, he was, in fact, Jewish, and faced many hardships in his life, like being born without a foreskin. This would inevitably bleed into his music, where it would impact how he looked at society and strive to fight discrimination on a deeper level than most people have. You see, Bob Dylan perceived himself as being abused by those in power, by those richer and more successful than he. He decided to use his abilities to write against these topics and discuss them to his audience in order for them to understand the great travesties that faced America as a whole during the early 1960s. Interestingly enough, this would overlap on August 28, 1963, when both Bob Dylan and Martin Luther King would take stage on the same day talking about these topics. Although, while Martin Luther King was discussing the meaningful aspects of why segregation should not be allowed in America as it is a free country, Bob Dylan was singing songs. All the songs he sang during that day had lyrics discussing why foreskin should not be removed from babies, as it deeply affected him as a child. It's relatively unknown why people took Bob Dylan's comments to heart, but they did. And soon enough, the young Dylan would become a famous musician. While at first this was believed just to be a phenomenon in America, soon it branched out and the entire world was discussing his ideals about why removing foreskin from babies is wrong. This can be seen mostly in the British music scene, which was taking off and outperforming anything released in America during that time. The Beatles would be deeply inspired by Bob Dylan, especially on their Help album, with the song You Got to Hide Your Love Away, directly addressing the controversies of foreskin. Bob Dylan would hold all of the Beatles in high regards. Controversially enough, John Lennon would, of course, dislike Bob Dylan in many regards, and that mostly came down to the fact that he did not have a foreskin, but John did. And this can be mostly seen within the covers of Two Virgins. This cover, of course, was purposefully targeting Bob Dylan and was just there to show off the fact that John Lennon did have a foreskin, and it was supposed to be a very public campaign in order to harass Bob Dylan. Bob would actually speak about this in an interview, one of the rare interviews he actually did. Quote, "I'm doing an interview, one of the few times I will ever do this, and yet you're asking me about John Lennon's foreskin. I can tell you I'm simply not interested. Let's go back to the topics at hand." Quote. It's relatively unknown why Bob Dylan decided to be so angered by this and refused to comment on the situation, but it's just to be believed that his PTSD of losing a valuable part of his body as a child caused this outcome. This is a relatively unknown fact about Bob Dylan and John Lennon, but it's believed that Mark David Chapman was actually an assassin hired by Bob Dylan in order to take out John Lennon for this public display of scrutiny, and that is why John Lennon is no longer with us. And that is how Bob Dylan impacted society, not only in the United States but worldwide. Due to his commitment of trying to fight against that of the removal of foreskin of babies, Bob Dylan became a cultural icon His linguistic skills and mastery of the craft have truly shown that discrimination of any kind is not welcomed within our country, especially that of those who do not have foreskin left. I hope you all enjoyed my video, and hopefully in the future I can make some more and discuss some more topics about how music has changed us as a species. Goodbye, everyone.